Okay.
So Mark asks, question for the pod or not? It will be.
You're on now.
How do you go about communicating the use of e-collars to potential clients? Since it can have such a poor public perception, I do agree with you that trainers in the balance community sugarcoat it, wanting to be the nice e-collar trainer. I also like the point you made on this podcast about the older woman not wanting to push the button and finding compromise. That wasn't the case we talked about last time of the lady with the small dog, didn't want to use the e-collar, but we tried to compromise with a bark collar so she didn't have to be the one correcting the dog. Whatever. Listen to the last episode if you want to hear about that.
Yes.
I had a consult with a woman yesterday and asked what previous experience with other trainers and equipment she had. She brought up the prong collar, a training that the rescue sent out to her, had brought the collar and implied that they needed to use it. Her thoughts were coming from an emotional place, and she instantly wrote it off. I've always taken the position of education and not an authority on equipment. Educating potential clients of the tool and how it could be used from a point of punishment or reinforcement. So this is a really good question, and this is another tricky one to answer, right? Because here's the thing. At this stage in our success as a company, right, we don't really need to have the conversation much with people, right? Because we've talked many times before, our marketing and our branding does all of that work for us, right? We are so black and white on the internet that we're e-collar trainers, prong collar trainers, food trainers, et cetera, et cetera. We use all of these tools. I'm so black and white about not sugarcoating it with people and saying, hey, it's an aversive tool. The dog doesn't like it. But because the dog doesn't like it, that's why it works, right? Et cetera, right? Like all of what we do and put out there gets that out, right? And any of our clients that call us looking for training have to go through all of this information in order to even talk to us in the first place, meaning they have to go through the portal to our website. They need to read about our programs that talk about the tools, right? They have to watch videos showing dogs using the tools, right? And then we finally talk to them, right? So by the time we talk to these people, generally speaking, if there's any questions, they say, can you just tell me a little bit more about the e-collar? To which I don't even get into a big discussion with it, right? I tell people the e-collar is an aversive tool we could use to teach or stop unwanted behaviors, right? And the goal with the e-collar or any aversive that we're using is that the dog learns how to escape or avoid that pressure so we don't have to use it long term. That being said, consequences are a way of life. Consequences are the reason why we as humans behave in the way that we do, the reason why we're in a civilized society right now. And to think that it would be any different for dogs is just a fantasy, right? Yeah. So I kind of get into that, to which most people are like, yeah, well, that makes complete sense, right? I further get into the intensity of the e-collar is 100% contingent on the dog's behavior, right? Some dogs are very sensitive. Other dogs are much more resistant to it, right? And I think the biggest thing that helps people is seeing the progress. You know what I mean? Like our results speak for ourselves with stuff, right? Our reviews speak for ourselves, right? When people have concerns, I'm not going to talk to you about it, right? I'll answer questions that you might have, obviously, but I'm not going to try to convince you to like the tool, obviously. Like in this case, he mentioned the lady saw a trainer through the rescue, and the trainer said they have to use a prong collar, and she emotionally didn't want to do it, right? Well, she emotionally wasn't ready to do training, right? She needed to hit a point with her dog where she felt like, I am open to the information that people are providing me, right? So I'll usually point them back in the direction of our testimonials. I'll point them back in the direction of our YouTube videos so that they could see firsthand everything that we're going to do, so nothing is going to surprise them once we get into it. Now, you will still inevitably have some people that slip through the cracks, that when you start the training process, they're going to be a little hesitant on the e-collar use. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I did a send home lesson with a dog, right? It's a lab, psycho lab. This dog's actually like batshit crazy. It's a lab, right? It's your typical lab that just is crazy and young. And this dog, his nose is just like fucking like a hound, like just absolutely glued to the ground. Yeah. Crazy dog. Okay. Whatever, right? So I go and we go to do our send home lesson. And in the beginning of the send home lesson, the dog jumps on the owner because they're all wound up. And I tell him no, and I correct him at like a 20. And this is a dog that generally works like 60 to 80. Okay. And at a 20, this dog was like, ah! Let out a little yip.
Yeah.
And I could just immediately tell the owner was like,
Oh, no.
very, like, this is her baby, right? Which I understand. I completely understand. So we had the conversation. I talked about, listen, like, 90% of the reason why your dog yelped at that 20 right now has to do with the fact that the dog is so overstimulated right now, and it surprised them because they've never gotten corrected around you before. They've never had to deal with any of that stuff before, right?
True.
So it's shocking to them, more or less, right?
Yeah.
And that, you'll see as we move through this session that one, as we were talking, like 20 minutes went by, and I was like, notice this dog hasn't jumped a single time since I gave that correction. So the dog learned how to avoid the correction, right? And obviously they're fine right there. They're not all like stressed out or anything like that, right? And two, as we started working through the rest of the session, we were working at levels much higher than that, and the dog wasn't having the same response. And then three, I actually took the e-collar off, and I put it on myself and tapped the button like 20 times right in front of her. I was like, it really ain't that bad.
Yeah,
right?
it's not.
And as we went on through the sessions, sometimes people have to just see how everything comes together in order to actually get it, right? So as she saw, we took the dog outside. Dog's nose was glued to the ground. It's like, this is my turf, like trying to sniff around and explore and stuff like that. I had to correct the dog a decent amount of times for not getting into a down. And then after I did that, the dog did like 50 downs perfectly, right? And then we went and took the dog for a walk. And there were things this lady said. She said specifically, we can't walk by that fire hydrant or that rock right there because we won't get past it. She won't stop sniffing it. And guess what we did? We walked right by the fire hydrant and the rock, and the dog walked beautifully past it. And I explained to her, I was like, it's because of the corrections. It's because of the consequences that we have this dog completely under control.
Yeah.
And then we started getting into the safety side of things, right? Of teaching her that the consequences for not listening while off leash in this turf area, right? Like, what if she takes off? There's a street right there. Like, that's a big problem, you know? And as we kind of got through that and she saw the dog's behavior so much better because of the corrections and she understood all of that side of things, it helped us get past it. But the only reason why I got into all of that kind of stuff with her is because we already had her committed to the program. Right? I'm not going to debate with somebody over the phone on why an e-collar is such a good tool for them if they're already averse to it, right? I need the people to come into the program understanding and knowing that we are not going to lead you astray, right? We have a ton of stuff out there that tells you exactly what we do and how we do it, and you either trust us or you don't trust us, right? And sometimes as newer trainers, you have to have those debates because you're trying to get as many clients as you can and you haven't made a name for yourself, right? But as quickly as you can, you need to get yourself out of that boat of convincing people to do the training with you and just letting your work speak for itself.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to your marketing. So market yourself in the way that you train, right? Be much more clear about that, and you shouldn't have a lot of these problems.
Yeah, makes total sense.